I'm not like most people that have a problem with Kyle Edward Ball's 2022 independent Canadian horror film Skinamarink. Most people that have a problem with it, they think it's boring, the shots are ugly, nothing happens, it's just lots of shots of hallways and carpets, it takes too long. And my problem is, it's so close to exactly what I want out of a horror movie like this. It's like right next to where I want it. But it's just not quite there. I very much appreciate Kyle Edward Ball's vision, and he should be very happy with what he's done. But I want him to be ripped off by somebody with a much more commercial sensibility. And I can explain why.
Part 1. The characters.
Skinamarink is the story of two kids and their parents in a house. Now, some nameless presence, some entity, some reality warper isolates them in the house, causes the parents to disappear, makes the windows and the doors vanish, so that as far as the kids are concerned, they're just stuck in this house, and it might as well always be night. And they can't seem to turn on the lights. They can only watch television, turn on their flashlights, and hope nothing else disappears like the toilet does. Things start to levitate up to and stick into the ceiling. The malevolent presence begins to make itself felt much more directly on the children. But who are the children? Well, they're 4 and 6-year-old Kaylee and Kevin. Kevin, before the events of the film, fell down the stairs and he had to be rushed to the hospital, but he seemed to recover. That's about all we know about them. Well, they have feet. We certainly know that. I know Ball's emphasis was on stylistic pastiche, atmosphere, and evoking a sort of liminal nightmarish quality. That's not going to sustain a film. It's not going to keep me interested. It's not going to find him his wider audience if he doesn't put characters in there. I will take a lot of abstraction and very few events if you put characters into a movie that I can care about. I love the movie Secret Honor. And Secret Honor is just Nixon trying to record a message for somebody in Cuba for 90 minutes. And it's riveting. So if you can give me personalities for Kevin and Kaylee, you'll have me. They don't need to do all the predictable, tropey, make me like them stuff. They don't need to pet any dogs. They don't need to save any cats. And I'm also not saying that things need to end well for the family. This can have a downer ending. There are plenty of great, endlessly rewatchable horror movies with downer endings. But I need to care about Kevin and Kaylee. I need to know who they are. Now, some people are going to argue that by making Kevin and Kaylee vague, that means I can invest more of myself in them, or at least I can project more of myself onto them. They supposedly are characters with more universal appeal, you know, like Neo from The Matrix, Jake Sully from Avatar. I completely disagree with that. And I believe you'll find many audience members and filmmakers will tell you that you are better off giving color to your character and risking making them less 100% relatable than if you make them nothing. It's like Bob Baker, who's one of the co-writers of the Wallace and Gromit movies. You know, the movies about the inventor who loves cheese, lives in, I think it's supposed to be timeless, but kind of 1950s, 1960s Sheffield, UK. What he said of these characters is that by making them completely specific, he made them universal. And that would be what you want with Kaylee and Kevin. A criticism that has been lodged against this movie by industry professionals has been that Kevin and Kaylee don't really react believably to what's going on. I believe the idea is supposed to be that they're such naive children that they're like overwhelmed by it, that they think, oh, this is cool. But it goes from these kids just naively not understanding what's going on to these kids are completely shell-shocked and grimly accepting that they are powerless in the face of the situation. Way too fast. If I were in that situation as a kid, I know I wouldn't know what to do, but I'd try to do something to get out of there. I would do more than make one phone call. Okay, now I'm not saying the whole thing needs to become wacky hijinks where Kevin turns into Kevin McAllister and he jerry-rigs something to get them out of there. I'm saying it could be completely pathetic, totally ineffective what they try to do to escape. They could, like, try to dig at a corner of the house with Legos. They could try to look for exits. They could do anything except just sit there and watch TV and play with Legos and eat cereal. I don't think the movie suffers for having a bleak ending. I think it suffers for only seeming like it will lead to a bleak ending. The audience, if they're really gonna get invested, if they're really gonna feel that downer ending, they need to think along the way that they had a chance. That these kids, they might be more clever and more resourceful than they seem at first. They can think of a way out. Doom needs to sneak up on characters and the audience if you want to keep people invested to the end. As is, it's just, you're doomed. There's no reason to think you aren't doomed. Why would an audience member keep watching if there could only be a bad end for Kyle and Kaylee? They could leave halfway through the movie and probably guess, well, those kids aren't getting out of that. And they'd be right. Part 2, filmmaking style. When people speak positively about Skinamarink, they're almost certainly going to mention the style. They're going to mention the grain. They're going to mention the dark. They're going to mention the deliberate pace. They're going to invoke the relatively trendy horror concept, liminal horror. How so much of this movie derives its horror from big shots of empty spaces. Empty hallways, empty corners. That's the main subconscious appeal. I think Kyle Everball, his instincts led him to include some shots that were counterproductive for the style he's attempting to capture. It's shots of tops of doorways. It's shots of upper corners of hallways. Shots of, the floor. Now, the first reason I think shots like this are off is because that breaks the immersion. Because when I was a child having nightmares, I could certainly remember the point of view shots. He includes a few of those. They're handheld. But when he is shooting up in the corner of a hallway at the top of a door, that looks off to me for that purpose because as a kid, I was a tall kid, but I wasn't 9 feet tall, so I would never just stand there and stare into a corner of a hallway. Why would I do that? Why would you do that? People don't describe that as a nightmare thing. It's also counterproductive because if you shoot at eye level, then if you can shoot into a dark space and give the audience something to orient what they're looking at, like a frame of a doorway, but it's all murky inside, or you're looking around a piece of furniture, that works. That's what we remember from being kids and sneaking around and trying to look around things. Because you can imagine that if the camera moves just barely, there could be something off screen that you can see that would be horrifying. But if you've got the camera pointed way up at a corner, then I don't feel that way because the camera would have to really move a lot more to actually catch the action that I could just barely be missing if you shot objects from eye level. It might feel like it's a tiny difference, but it gets you on a subconscious level. It's like the literary concept, the hand of the author. Now that's when your immersion is broken in a story because the author wrote in a kind of clumsy way where you're conscious of their prose or their style or their plot machinations instead of the story that you're supposed to be getting invested in. When you shoot in such an unnatural style that is so dissimilar to human experience or human point of view, then I see the hand of the filmmaker. And when I see enough shots like that in a movie, and you see quite a few of those in Skinamarink, then I become conditioned to think, I'm not going to be seeing anything. There's nothing happening off screen. He's just showing me that corner because he has nothing else to show me. I'm not in a dream world. Kyle's just showing me a corner of a hallway again, something I wouldn't look at under these circumstances. Please don't do those anymore. It's not indicative of something that somebody would do while they're looking away. If from the very start of the movie things are already shot unnaturally and weirdly and you're not showing faces and you're not orienting the locations of objects, you're not giving me a sense of the house or the room or where everything is in relation to each other, it doesn't feel like Kevin and Kaylee are being cut off from the world as much. The world just doesn't feel real. When I'm shown that exterior shot of the house looking unnatural, that's subconsciously, naturally less impactful to me because I didn't know what the house looked like before that. There's some shots of photographs. It warped these photographs of the children so that they don't have heads or so that as babies, they didn't have faces. Maybe it has altered them throughout time, not just who they are now, but who they were, and who they'll always be. But I need to see those photographs beforehand. The audience needs a base level to compare them to. I hate to use such a conventional filmmaking conceit for what's trying to be such a unique and stylized movie, but if you're gonna try and go for payoffs like that, we need setups. Payoffs without setups, it just feels arbitrary. You know, you haven't done anything to invest us in these things before you change them. The way that he films the characters with them either completely off screen or their feet, I think those scenes are so off. And I'm not saying he needs to film them fully conventional. I think his effect of never showing faces works brilliantly. I think it's a bold and very effective, very evocative choice to never show the characters' faces. But I need to see their whole bodies more. It feels like that one music video where, was it the Beastie Boys? Or for so much of the video, they're turned away from the camera. That gives you a much stronger effect. That gets you intrigued, that makes you think about who they are. But if you only show their feet, then I, as an audience member, and I think a lot of other audience members subconsciously, will start to get used to thinking, oh, the director's just never gonna show their faces. And what really convinces me that this is the case is that the most horrifying scene of the movie is their mother sitting on the bed. You see quite a lot of her, but she's facing away from the camera. Somebody being faced away from a camera, that has a lot of loaded meaning. That makes you read emotions into their face. That makes you think, are they ashamed of me? Do they not want to look at me? Can they not look at me? What happens if they turn around? But just showing a character's feet, all that makes me think is, the director angled the camera way down so that I can only see their feet. Okay, well, they're probably not going to tilt the camera up. That's not going to get that feeling that you want. Part 3. Criticisms of specific sequences. In like the middle of the movie, there's a scene where Kaylee is told to go downstairs, and then later Kevin goes downstairs. And when Kevin goes downstairs, he sees Kaylee without eyes or a mouth, accompanied by a loud noise, and then immediately we see the living room and we hear Kevin run back into the room and start panting. And then he goes and watches TV, because that's pretty much all he can think to do. I think that the pieces of this scene are such that Kyle Edward Ball missed a stellar opportunity. How I think this should have happened was, Kaylee goes downstairs because the malevolent entity somehow convinces her, but Kevin just is too afraid to go down there. And then maybe Kaylee starts to scream, but Kevin's too afraid. Who wouldn't be too afraid? I would be too afraid, and I'm not 4. All these kids have for comfort are his Legos and his television. So he just tries to focus on the TV. He tries to block out Kaylee screaming, and Kevin is just trying to enjoy the cartoons. All he's got is the cartoons. There is escape, there is everything. And then there on the TV screen is Kaylee's face without eyes or a mouth. And while downstairs there's a loud noise, it's kind of cheap as a jump scare. The fact that this image is coming from the television, that somehow this malevolent entity has the ability to interfere with the TV that way and like broadcast the things it does directly into the television, that's how you motivate the loud noise. Make it diegetic, make it organic to the scene. Maybe he could just keep watching the TV, but there is no way, after staring directly into that, after the thing he's trying to do to cope has shown him that horrifying image, that he or the audience could ever take comfort or find escapism in that television. More significantly, in my opinion, towards the end, Kevin is walking on the ceiling, and that's horrifying. That is one of the most unique, one of the most creative variations on doing a point of view, found footage shot, and I think you accomplished it brilliantly. Now he is using his flashlight to walk on the ceiling into a room because the malevolent entity tells him to. And when he enters into that room, the point of view starts to drift back and back and back and back, as if it is exiting not just the room, but our reality. It's the 5-minute hallway from the Navidson record in the book House of Leaves, rendered perfectly. Why isn't that the end of the movie? The movie ends with a blurry face and Kevin asking it, "Who are you?" and it telling him to go to sleep. That's not how your movie should have ended. You drift away into nothingness. You have that extremely creative shot. You have exactly the ending you need there. why do you keep your movie going past that? It just felt like it had reached its natural, logical endpoint, and it kept going. And the shot where we see Kevin's blood splattered, and it rewinds and it splatters again, and it rewinds and it splatters again, that's not scary. I only see the hand of the director at work, or the hand of the editor in this case.
Conclusion, Marink.
Kyle Edward Ball, I've actually interacted with him on Twitter, and he's been extremely nice to me. And it doesn't seem like he made this movie in any way to troll anybody. I certainly don't think this movie is pretentious. I think he was trying to go for an effect, go for a feeling. And he gets that feeling sometimes, just close enough to make me think it could have landed so perfectly. And unfortunately, the fact that it misses the mark in the way it does, it means that many people giving this movie a chance will see this kind of movie and they'll think, well, I'm just gonna watch The Conjuring now. I'm just gonna watch conventional movies. When I give those artists a chance, they give me this. So that's why I'm asking for somebody to try and rip this movie off. It can even be Kyle Edward Ball. I want to see this kind of movie done right. This kind of movie can evoke exactly the kind of emotion as conventional movies go for, and it can even be scarier. It can have a texture that gets you, and you can find the exact same chills, thrills, compelling characters, the highs and lows, the arcs, the immersive feeling that you look for in more conventional horror movies. That can be achieved, and it's such a shame that Skinamarink just didn't quite make it. But it can. And if there's one thing that pop culture tells you from plays, covers, remakes, it's that the fact that one movie isn't quite what it could be, that doesn't mean we can't try again. Hey folks, thank you for watching. If you wanted to tell me, well, you make your own damn movie then. I did make a couple of my own damn movies, and I'll include them in the comments. I've also written my own damn book. Well, I co-wrote it with Jonathan Wojcik, who's also a big fan of Skinamarink. Return of the Living is about a post-apocalyptic future where life isn't possible anymore. Everything is dead and has become ghosts. But one ghost has seen the first living biological entity. Will she be able to get anybody to believe what she saw? If you would like to support future videos like this one, check it out in the comments where I'll include a link to a copy.